this is such a nice intimate audience. I mean, I think we should feel free to basically jump in at any time, because Adam and I have already done this 4 times now, and we'll just start rapping on between ourselves, and it's quite good for you guys to maybe pull us up and interject now and then. Otherwise, it just becomes pretty much
Get on with it.
Standard operating procedure. Thank you. There you go. Now, Adam's got a really great background that I completely relate to. I only found out when he came down all the way from Alabama that he's got a sort of history of making 48-hour films, which it was a great surprise to me, since we were sort of using that as exploiting his film Pop Skull on the back of that. But I was just, maybe we'll start off with his background, because for a very young guy, he's only 24 now, and he's made 2 feature films, and they're both very different films, and he's had enormous obstacles to overcome in each of them, and they're both 2 very different stories behind the making of those films. But maybe you could sort of start out telling us, how you started getting into filmmaking in Alabama, which is not exactly film central USA. It's sort of out in the boonies, and you don't have those connections that everyone else has from, the film schools in California and on the East Coast.
Yeah, well, like I grew up in a town called Marion, Alabama, and there's about 1,000 people total in the town, and of course in a small town like that, there's not really any place to buy movies or rent movies or anything like that. So the only real place you can check out films is on TV, and at the time that was before we even had satellite or anything like that. So it's basically just if something good was on HBO, you'd catch something, but it was mainly mainstream stuff that we were exposed to when I was younger. And then and it wasn't until I got to the point where I actually had a little bit of money as I was growing up, and I started going out to the bigger cities, and started looking at the shelves and kind of being well, I need to really start buying some stuff that I can't just watch on TV back home. And so that's kind of how I started my interest in kung fu movies, and just foreign films in general. A lot of Japanese cinema and stuff, and anime and all that stuff.
So was there a moment when you went from just a passive viewer to wanting to actually create your own work?
Well, yeah.
Was there something defining that?
Well, I think it was just growing up and watching I think it was probably Alien 2, or Aliens, that when I used to watch as a kid. I remember that was the first time that I really consciously was I want to try and make a movie. And it was I think we even took our big VHS loaded camera out, and we're let's make an alien movie. And it wasn't until we actually started shooting, we're wait a minute, this is a lot harder than we thought. You can't just use your imagination and project that on the screen. That was kind of a weird realization to come to, when you're a 3rd grader, that when you go and shoot cows and stuff outside, that they just look like cows, when they're on screen. But yeah, I mean, that was always movies like that, growing up, that inspired me. But it wasn't until I really got into more of the subversive cinema that, and I started seeing lower budget stuff, even when I first saw Fallen Angels and stuff like that, just stuff with more gritty feels. When I was I felt like I related to that type of cinema, and that kind of pushed me to that next level. And there's all these naysayers in my school. Anytime if you brought up wanted to have an interest in doing movies and stuff like that, but it's just oh, it's impossible. And it really felt impossible, getting into it, so far away from Hollywood, so far removed from the rest of the planet, really. And it wasn't until I just started experimenting with the camera and stuff that I realized that, my first efforts weren't good, but I was still having a good time, and slowly, I was getting better and better, and just kind of learning what worked and didn't work, and that kind of started my whole, I guess, the status for how I would approach things later on, which would be less of a textbook type of thing and more of a, learning hands-on and stuff like that.
So you made a conscious decision to leave school early, and then and wanted to do a course in filmmaking. Mm-hmm. I mean, the course was primarily to have access to more equipment, or just to connect.
I just dropped out of high school my last year, and because I never did good in grades or anything like that, so I just went straight to this film school in Orlando, Florida. That was it's a 13-month film school, in and out, and that's all I wanted. I didn't even I just wanted to have the basic knowledge, so that I could just start doing stuff. And after I did that, well, the one good thing about film school is a lot of times people ask me if it's worth going to film school, what film schools I would recommend and stuff like that, and that's not an easy question to answer, because I guess any of it's whatever you make of it, But for me, like, I'm not the type of personality that can really learn things sitting down and listening to somebody lecture or anything like that. I'm more of like a hands-on type of personality. So film school in that sense wasn't very helpful. But the thing that did help me out is that I met one of my collaborators, E.O. Katz, who, I've been working with him ever since then, and it's turned out like he's starting to have a really budding career out there in L.A. right now and so forth. With where film school is concerned, it's almost like it's a good place to meet other people who are interested similarly to film, and they're kind of at the same level of it, coming up as you are. And if you can relate to them, then you can kind of help each other and develop each other's, style as you go. And because
do you think without Evan, and who's his writing partner on several projects, do you think without connecting with Evan at that stage as a collaborator, you would have proceeded as quickly as you did to making your first feature at 19, or do you think you would have?
Well, because like whenever I was in high school, just with my little brothers, because fortunately I had 3 other brothers, so there was always an abundance of crew and cast, so like before I'd even got out of high school, I'd already done these like 3 like feature-length, shot on video martial arts films that we played at these little youth film festivals and stuff. But the important thing about things like that is, like, obviously those were shit, and they were just whatever they were. But I think that developing skill with filmmaking, at least for me, and I'm pretty sure it's like that for almost everybody, unless you have your first film is $1 bazillion and you can just pay somebody to make it beautiful for you. But the learning process is one of like definitely trial and error. And it seems like you can only get better at film by consistently doing it, And I mean, I guess it's the same with really any art form. But a lot of people just assume that you can just jump right. Yeah, you can just jump right into a film and make a great film because the problem is you hear about filmmakers' debuts and you just assume that that's like their first thing, because that's the first thing you heard of. But I guarantee you, most of these people, if they didn't have a huge budget on their first film and paid people to make it right for them, that they worked at it for a long time. It's like that overnight success that took 10 years kind of thing.
So you went from you're obviously a